very much, Charlene.
All right, guys. So welcome everybody to the last sort of demo of the day, med reconciliation. Let me get my slide to go here. Just a reminder, all the sessions are being recorded. So we ask that you turn your cameras and mics are turned off so that we can focus on the presenters. Reportings will be available within the week. We would ask that you keep all of your questions until the end of the session. We've allotted some time. We'll send out the survey link, which I understand has been causing some grief today, so we will sort that out and send that out. You can feel free to put any chat as well inside the chat box. We will try to answer it as we're going forward. And so I'm going to introduce you to your presenters today. So you have Amy Belisle, who's a ED nurse from GBGH and one of the build team co-leads. So she's going to be Nurse Amy today. And then we have Rebecca Hardwick, who is one of the co-leads for the pharmacy build team, and she is going to be Pharm Tech Rebecca today. And then on the call, we also have James Castillo, kindly joining us from Health Tech, and he's going to be Dr. Castillo today, although the College of Nurses does not know that he has those letters behind his name. So they are kindly going to walk you through so ED nurse requests for BPMH, what the pharmacy tech processes are for request and to completing those home medications, and then we'll show you the physician form of physician medication reconciliation. So I'm going to hand it over to this very capable group, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Karen. All right. So I, Amy Belisle, will start off as the ED nurse. I'm going to go off camera because I just found earlier that it was a little choppy if I stayed. Unless I don't want you to see me. And I will share my screen. Okay. You see that screen okay? Is it big enough?
We can see it. Looks good.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so ED nurses have the capability to request a BPMH when the pharmacy techs are around and schedule. I mean, there's hours differencing at every site when the BPMH techs will be around. But if an ED nurse feels right at triage that that patient's going to be admitted, and we can make that decision early. We don't have to wait for a physician to make that decision, and pharmacy would prefer the earlier the better we make that call. Or at any time throughout that stay. I mean, conversation could even happen between the physician and we go in and order it. The physician can order it as well and put in that request for the pharmacy tech to be able to come in and get started on that BPMH. Before I request the BPMH, I do want to also show you for 3 sites, we are not going to have 24-hour pharm techs. So we've come up with an intervention, and it is called Current Home Medications. So what that is really just a free text box where nursing can go in and put in the medication list from that patient. So the purpose of being able to do this is so the physicians have a list to go by, because we're not going to physically have that chart. Typically, photocopying those sheets, and when the BPMH pharm techs are not in the building and not able to be able to get started on that, if we put this list in, then the physicians can take it from there to be able to continue on with their med rec. So I will not go any further on that, and then I will save that. I'll just put that in quickly. Now, when I have now felt that my patient's probably going to be admitted and I do want that BPMH to be completed by our pharmacy techs, what I can do is come in here. We've built this ED BPMH intervention for the nurses to document to. And you can see that we have 3 choices here. Nurse is going to click on requested, selecting this option if you would like to communicate to pharmacy tech that the BPMH is required. I will hand it over to Rebecca once I have filed this, and we do have the second selection is in progress, and that will be the pharmacy tech taking that over when they start their BPMH. So I will save this And yes, I'm completing it. You'll see that it is completed on my intervention. And then you will see on my tracker on our BPMH column now that it says requested. And I'll hand it over to Rebecca. Thanks.
Okay, so we have a BPMH tracker that the pharmacy technicians will use in the ED so they can manage those patients who need to have BPMH completed. So this is the patient here. So you can see Amy requested this BPMH, so it's appearing as requested here. This column title is still to be determined, but you can see, for example, this patient, it says confirmed. So that is a patient who's already had their BPMH completed, and that information pulls here to alert to the user that that one is confirmed, so it's completed. And then you can see this when it says not updated. So this is the patient I'm going to use. And that's because no BPMH information has been updated for that patient. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open the chart. I'm going to go to the work list. And I'm going to now document on that same intervention that Amy had entered. And I'm going to say that it's in progress now. At this stage, we say no to completing this intervention. And then I will go in and interview my patient to do my BPMH. And once I've interviewed the patient, I'm going to come into the summary panel and I'm going to edit the home medications. So in this instance, you can see there are a bunch of medications there with question marks. That's because this patient was previously admitted for a different visit. Discharge medication reconciliation occurred and prescriptions had been issued along with directions for previous home medications. So that information all stays in the system. So you kind of have something to start off with when the patient comes back for their next visit. So we're going to edit this. And I'm going to say that during my interview, I spoke to the patient and they are no longer taking these 3 medications. So haloperidol, hydromorphone, and ramipril. You can take action on each medication individually, but I know I'm discontinuing all 3 of these medications. So I've clicked the box for all 3. Down at the bottom, I'm going to use the footer button for discontinue. And then I have to pick a reason. So patient is no longer taking this medication. As you can see, there is a drop down, but you can also free text in information as well if you want to, if the reason you're looking for does not exist. So we'll click OK. And you can see in the status column over here on the right now that those 3 medications, the status has now changed to discontinue. So during my interview, the patient told me, yes, they are still taking metformin 500 milligram twice a day. Metoprolol, they're taking a half of a 25 milligram tablet twice a day, and they're still taking their simvastatin. So I can go ahead and again, clicking the medications I want to confirm, I can use the confirm footer button and confirm those all at once. The other thing I can do is I can update some required fields that are going to pop up for me when I try and save this, and I can do them all sort of in a batch as well. So the first would be the last taken information. So if it was known, I could put the time and date that it was known. So if it was today at 9 o'clock this morning, and that'll apply to all 3 of those medications. And that's the nice feature about this, is being able to click multiple medications and use these footer buttons instead of having to hit each of these fields individually. The other field I'm going to update is the source field. So we know that when we do a best possible medication history, we need to have a minimum of 2 sources of information to confirm that, with the patient always being one of them. So I will update that with my 2 sources, click OK. And then they've also told me they are taking a new medication. So we're going to enter a new medication. This is a drug concept dictionary supplied by our formulary service vendor. It's updated monthly with changes to what is on the market. So as things are discontinued or new things become available, they get updated in this dictionary, and then we can pull them into the home medication field. This is a nice upgrade from what we have in client server currently as well, because that's quite a manual process to update that dictionary. So I will say patient and retail pharmacy. And we will say today. Oops. Now, if there were some comments that we might want to add for medication, we can use this RX instruction. So for example, if you had a prednisone taper, you would put your current dose in, and then you'd put your taper instructions in this RX instructions fields. And these pharmacy comments and patient comments fields all pull forward to the provider as well, so they can see the information that is being added in those fields. So we are going to save this. Okay, so you'll see now this home medications, there's no question marks anymore, and that's because all of the medications have now been put into a confirmed status. And I'm going to go back to the work list. And we're going to update the intervention. I'm going to say that it's been completed now. And I want to complete this intervention so it falls off. And then if we head back to the tracker, here's our patient EDM4, and you can see now that the home medications are showing confirmed here and that the request has been completed. So I will pass it off here to James.
Perfect. So now we're in the physician's side of the house now, and I don't think we've seen the physician kind of interface today, but our physicians have seen this in a couple of the demos. But just so everyone else on the call is aware, it is a different interface that you're seeing, but the same information that we saw previously in PCS, anywhere in the patient chart, all that information is all readily accessible. So I'm going to go to the same patient, and I'm just still in the ED tracker. We can see that the patient that we were using was EDM4. One thing I want to point out, so on Rebecca's and on Amy's, in their tracker, they had the query, or I guess the data that showed whether a BPMH was completed. And essentially, we can see that here. So the home medication status has been confirmed. Although, if we do remember what Amy had said previously, let's say that you didn't have the pharmacy techs on at that point in time, the nurses could go ahead and basically document those home medications so that the physician was aware when there wasn't a pharmacy tech. You can see that Lasix that Amy had entered earlier is actually available for the physician to see over here. But we can see that right from the patient's tracker. And I'm just going to go ahead and launch into that patient's chart. Again, a lot of the same information, and this is a test patient, so you don't see a lot of the information in here. But really, from the physician's perspective, and most of the time that you're completing this MedRec, it's within the context of an admission. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my orders section, and just note that I got this pop-up because the height and weight hasn't been entered on this patient. But when we're doing the admission process as a physician, we do it through something in Meditech called the transfer routine. We won't go into the full depth of what you actually would be doing in terms of the transfer routine, because that's really the admission workflow. But a subset of what happens in the admission workflow is really that medication reconciliation. And you can see here, basically, I have all the active home medications that have been confirmed by our pharmacy tech. We basically get a choice with what to do with those medications at the point of admission. So whether I decided as a physician for that patient to continue that medication or to hold that medication during their stay as an inpatient, I have the option to do that. So I can choose to either continue or hold, for example. So there's that Trajenta. You can see as soon as I click continue, it creates a linked medication in the visit medication. So basically what this is saying in the system is that if we're continuing this instance of a home medication, it's going to show up in their visit medication profile. Similarly with the metformin, I'll probably continue this one because that usually makes sense, but I'll just go down to the metoprolol. Again, I could choose to hold that one for this patient's stay, and notice that it just shows that in the visit medication, it shows hold there, as well as the simvastatin. So in a sense, you'll see that through the transfer routine, we're doing the reconciliation portion, and all I've done at this point as part of the admission process is reconcile what is going to happen with the home meds. But what happens later on, and again, we won't be getting into this today, but you'd be able to basically add any new orders and kind of preview and sign all this off before the patient gets admitted, and then the admission process kicks in. But as a subset of the admission process, this is kind of what happens with the MedRec process. I just need to fill in a couple fields here so that I can sign this off, and then we'll go from there. I'm just going to put test for now. And you'll see that when I'm actually completing that reconciliation and I choose what actions I want to happen, it actually prompts me upon signature as the physician, when do I want that first dose to occur, whether it's now or tomorrow. So if it were now, it would happen 15 minutes from now based on the medication intervals that have been set. Again, if I had missed any transfer, or I just didn't specify who was going to be MRP on that patient, but let's do that for myself. Save, sign, and essentially I would have, once I've signed this, I would have completed the meds reconciliation as part of the admission process. So that's the demo. So I'll stop sharing. Karen, I'll let you take over if there's any questions or anything we can address. You got the mute.
It helps if I take myself off mute. I don't currently see any hands up. Seems to be my repertoire when I'm facilitating these. I forget to unmute myself. Does anybody have any questions? And there is nothing in the chat. Going once, going twice.
Good.
All right, so we will give everybody some time back and end this session. Josh, it looks amazing. I agree. So thank you all for joining us today. If you do think of a question after you walk away, please feel free to drop it in the chat. We'll still be monitoring and capturing, or you can send it to any of the presenters or myself, and we'll be happy to answer it for you. Otherwise, have a safe Wednesday, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.